I make people uncomfortable with my truth. I still have to speak it. And if people don't like it, oh well, and that I think is a big rite of passage of coming into our own as women and as humans.
Welcome to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, the podcast for high achievers who want to stay sharp, focused, and full of energy despite their diagnosis. With your host, National Board Certified Functional Medicine Health Coach, Julie Michelson, where Julie helps you take your power back from autoimmunity. And now here's your host, Julie Michelson.
Welcome back to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. I'm your host, Julie Houghton, and today we're joined by Lisa Beth Lent, author, speaker, and holistic health educator. Lisa Beth provides corporate wellness consulting using ergonomics and body awareness as a bridge to self-healing of chronic pain and other health conditions like autoimmunity, mental health issues, and behavioral and substance addictions. Her work is an expression of her own healing path, which she shares in her book, Align Your Body, Align Your Life. And through her nonprofit, All Rise, Lisa Beth offers her holistic health education and training to people recovering from addictions and abuse with the understanding that we rise by lifting others. In today's conversation, we're discussing the ongoing inner work that we both believe is absolutely essential for long-term health, even after the reversal of autoimmune symptoms. Lisa Beth shares the importance of true presence and stillness as daily practice in our ongoing wellness journey. Lisa Beth, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I would love for listeners to get to know a little bit about your journey. You have your own autoimmune transformation journey. And I feel like we talk about Hashimoto's all the time and less so Graves' disease. So share with us, I'm making the assumption that that's how you got into the holistic wellness space, but um, correct me if I'm wrong, but share a little bit of your journey, because I know that it's going to make such a contribution.
Well, thank you. I hope so. I think I think autoimmune diseases in women is very common for a reason. I was chronically stressed out for most of my life and primarily, unsupported. I had a lot of emotional, psychological abuse, neglect growing up as a child. So I think like right out of the gate, I was at in a stressed state from a very young age.
Sure.
And I've been interested in holistic healing since college, really. And I'm, 51 now, so it's been a long road. But it's been like a peeling of the onion where I wanted to try to get rid of my headaches in college. I had these persistent headaches, and I didn't know why. And it took me another decade and a half to learn that I had advanced osteoarthritis in my neck. But here I was taking willow bark, for headaches, but it was the root cause was in chronic inflammation coming from my neck, which by the way, is correlated with the throat chakra, right? And Graves' disease, right, is and hypothyroidism, like Hashimoto's is throat, the throat chakra, right? So once I started learning about the chakra systems and things happening in my neck and I was being treated as a pain in the neck, right? It was like kind of all came together. I've been on this road a very, very long time. And when I had the, diagnosis of Graves' disease, only was it 3 years ago? It was like I had flatlined after really running on fumes for a very long time. And and when I hit perimenopause, I hit it hard. And I like all of my air just was completely out of the tires. And I was basically non-functional, not dysfunctional. I was like non-functional. My
Yeah.
brain didn't work. I couldn't sleep. And it was a mess. And I would subclinically off my numbers with my thyroid for a couple of years. I had my iron was off. Like there was something going on. It was kind of like the jalopy was like clunking,
Yeah.
like and hissing and well moving, And then when I finally was diagnosed, it it helped me make sense of how important it is for me to prioritize my health. And I was doing the best that I thought I was doing my best. I mean, I
Yeah.
wrote a book about healing while I was in the thick of that sputtering, running out of fuel. I mean, I published my book in 2022, and it was all about how to overcome people pleasing and how to advocate for yourself and how to become embodied and empowered. And here I was, I was suffering. Uh, so writing that book was a bit of a catharsis,
Sure.
and that catharsis experience was also a little like it was a wonky experience because I was advocating things about nutrition that now I would like to rewrite the book and have a second edition to.
Right.
At the time of writing the book, I was advocating carnivore diet
Okay.
and comes, so that's a very aggressive treatment,
Yeah.
and it doesn't work for everyone. And I struggled with consistency in that diet and way of eating. I think you really have to be like, you have to like have the blinders
Yeah.
on and you can't stray from that. Uh, but ultimately, what I did with the autoimmune is for a short period of time, I went on pharmaceutical meds. And I also did a lot of plant medicine doing what is called combo. Have you heard of combo?
I have not.
Okay. It's frog medicine.
That's what I thought.
And
Okay.
this frog medicine, yeah, it's a rainforest. It's not psychedelic. It's actually a very intense journey of like embodying and being with like your discomfort. It's supposed to be a purgative and it rids your body of heavy metals. It's notoriously really good for certain autoimmune conditions like rheumatoid arthritis and Lyme's disease and all of this. And I just prayed. I did a lot of work with my plant medicine teacher, sat with that medicine in very like in deep prayer. It wasn't like, going to a clinic. They do offer these like combo clinic kind of things,
Mhm.
but it's like that medicine you don't want to mess with outside of reverent respect for that medicine, in my
Yes.
opinion. And anyway, long story short, 6 months later, I bounced. Oh no, I was on medication for about, yeah, 6 to 9 months, I think. And my thyroid clicked on and I needed to cut back on the medication. And then I had to get off the medication because my thyroid has
Doing its
been,
job.
was functioning again, which
Yeah.
by the way, by the way, very interesting to know that with Graves, medication, the pharmaceutical medication has been known to it, you know, wake the thyroid up into proper functioning. And my endocrinologist said that that can happen for like 40, around a little bit less than half the population, which is like very encouraging,
It
but
is.
staying in the remission is the challenge,
Right.
and I think like now it's all about maintaining health, prioritizing self, prioritizing stopping and slowing down, which I think if you don't learn how to slow down in your older age, post perimenopausal stage, like y- you start to suffer more and more.
Sure.
I
Well,
mean, I'm
I
generally
think
speaking,
even
but
younger. I think that for some people, it's, if you don't listen to the signals that you need to slow down, your body will shut you down. Like you said, you weren't dysfunctional, you were non-functional, right? Like that's what happens when we ignore all the whispers and sometimes the yells and I don't know. I want to circle back to the beginning of the awareness of the fact that you definitely had some physiological manifestations of that kind of stressful life. Um, because it's unusual. You're younger than me, but it's a little different now. I feel like with technology and the way young people are growing up and on screens and hunched on keyboards, and but to have I mean to have osteoarthritis in your neck in college back then was unusual. Um, and so thoughts about, do you think that was part of, you touched on, I want to highlight for listeners, you talked about throat chakra and thyroid, and there is definitely, especially with autoimmune, I think of the polite, I say I don't have a filter, but it's actually healthier, right? Than shoving everything down and not using your voice. So is that, you really just think that was that like physical manifestation of how you were living your life at the time? With the
Well, I
arthritis.
had the X-ray. Yeah, I had the X-ray taken when I was my first like semester in massage school. I think I was about 37.
Okay.
And when he looked at the X-ray, he was like, "What happened to you?" And
Okay.
because I had degradation between C4 and C6 that was advanced, he said, "You have degradation like an 80-year-old woman. Something happened to you." And I was like, "Yeah." And it took me about a year for a memory to drop into my head like a thunderbolt
Uh-huh.
that time that I was thrown from a horse when I was about 5 years old in summer camp, because back then they didn't do accident reports. I was hurled off of a horse, and my and I when I remember opening my eyes, I remember petting the horse and then getting catapulted, and I remember opening my eyes, and my helmet was next to me, which those
Mm.
helmets are like a pathetic excuse for a helmet,
Back
horse
then,
helmets,
yes. I
and that must have been it.
Yeah. Okay, and that is that interesting. And I will say this, as somebody with the history of rheumatoid arthritis, I fractured my back one time, while my RA was at its worst, and I was on, 10 prescriptions at the time, and was I fell off a horse. I wasn't thrown. It was my fault. But what it was fascinating when I went to the emergency room and I gave them my history and all the things. And it was L1 that I fractured. I knew something was wrong. Like, I had that signal of something's wrong. And they were fascinated with the arthritis in my neck. And I'm like, that's not why I'm here. Like, I already told you, actually ended up, they missed the fracture. I had to go to a different hospital. Um, we don't realize, people tend to not realize when we've got, you mentioned the like subclinical thyroid going on, right? Like when we have this inflammation brewing, chronic inflammation going on, sometimes even just behind the scenes, it's going to make the things like the osteoarthritis, stuff that maybe has been there and you never even felt it, right? Like, it's gonna flare all of that. Like, you're gonna feel those things, and the beauty is when we get the Yeah, I know. Well, because people think of like,
Autoimmunity
no.
make inflammatory conditions huge. But I had suffered chronic inflammatory responses more and more as I got older. So I
Yeah,
suffered from headaches from college and through, and the reason why I became a massage therapist, 15 years ago, that's kind of what began this whole journey to live as, a healer,
yeah,
and like my life is my message. That began with the desire to learn about the human body, but also to give the relief that I wanted, because my headaches were getting worse and worse and worse. And sitting in an office and having poor posture and hunched over a computer desk with my head literally ahead of myself, I started to I started to work on my posture and body mechanics. That was the beginning. But then I started to learn that, oh, foods cause inflammation too. And that's why I became a nutrition coach, is I wanted to learn more about that and how food sensitivities, not food allergies, food
Yeah.
sensitivities are a huge trigger for people who have these sensitivities. And I think like autoimmune, it usually happens in people who have sensitivities in some way, shape, or form. Like your immune system is ignited. Well, why? You
Right.
know? And I think that it has a lot to do with family of origin stuff, perhaps. It could not be, maybe, but also like latent, right? Like, oh, everything's fine. You think everything's fine, but meanwhile, there's like a dumpster fire going on
Right.
underneath the layers of everything's fine.
Yeah. Fine as
Because
it's
we're
a
ignoring whatever.
yeah, it's a four-letter F word. Just it can mean anything, that word fine. Like, and typically, often it does mean exactly what you said. There's a dumpster fire under there, but I'm gonna put on a smile and say, everything's fine. I can feel that in my throat, by the
Right.
way.
And that's
Well,
exactly what my the message in my book was like, when I learned to stop pretending, that's when I started having a like wake up call after wake up call where, I make people uncomfortable with my truth, but guess what? I still have to speak it.
yeah,
And if people don't like it, oh well. And that I think is a big rite of passage of coming into our own as
yeah,
women and as humans. That some people never do it, and then they just stay on the pharmaceutical train and business as usual. And I work on a lot of people in the massage world, who feel like they're kind of trapped in their lives,
yeah,
and they just that's the way it is. I work full time, I cook, I clean up, I do the laundry, I do it all, and that's just my life, even though I'm, like, crawling through life,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. I wanna the would reference the book a couple times. Align your body, align your life. And what I do and I love the honesty of there are chapters you would amend now, right? Because that's our journey. We're always learning. I had that conversation with a client this morning. We do the best with the information we have at the time. Sounds like motherhood, right? And then we learn. My kids are all adults and we have lots of laughing about what I didn't know back then, and so but I do love I've heard you say in other interviews, this idea of I truly believe, and it becomes a chicken or egg. This disconnect from what's going on in our body is what allows us to ignore to the point where we get autoimmune diagnoses, chronic illness symptoms, you know, fill in the blank. Um, so I got really excited, really leaned in when I heard you say, like, by tuning into our physical body, it can actually be a guide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. The body speaks, right? And overriding them with pain meds and busyness and self-minimization, wh which I think is learned, right? "Oh, I'm too busy for this," or I can't stop," right? Like, there's this unwritten current to life, and if we stop, it's like, "How dare you? Oh, you're lazy," and it goes against the divine feminine principle. Like, there needs to be moments of stillness,
Yeah. We're actually
and,
created
the
that way.
hard part is when but the hard part is when you're suffering, you really don't wanna be with it, you know? You wanna tune it out, you wanna
Yours.
gloss it over, you wanna throw a Band-Aid on it and move on, but
Yeah.
when you're really uncomfortable, that's the time when you go, "Well, put your hand on your heart," like, "What's going on with me?" Like, "What is my body trying to tell me?" And this is, like, the decoding of these messages. is kind of like, how do we decode them? If you're still long enough, your answers come.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. Or you get encouraged to have guidance in some way, shape, or form, you know? And I think that's the piece that was missing for me for so long coming from neglect is knowing where to get support from,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah.
And now I've learned that, trust my guidance and to trust the people who come into my reality. Oh, I guess this person is supposed to help me in some way, you know?
Yeah. Well, and you, like myself and so many people I've interviewed on the podcast, have become the guide you wish you had that you needed, right? And so I want to highlight because I could feel I think a really great place to start is because you said, if you're still long enough. And so I'm going to offer for listeners that find discomfort in the stillness, that's your clue that that's what you need, right? Because I do feel like, depending on for those that are a little more toward the beginning of that journey, um, but, that highlights yep, that is definitely what you need to be doing is working on.
Yeah, and sorry, no, I
Yeah.
wanna I love this line of thought because when you're if you ignore it and the noise is still there in the background no matter what you do,
Right.
and until and it's like noise,
It's an energy
it's
drain.
like this
Yeah.
energy is there. Almost an energy drain, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I in my book, I wrote, like, the subtitle of the book is, I feel like what is it? Because I always wanna flip my bending over backward and getting ahead of yourself, right? So there's this backwards and forwards, and then there's presence, right? Or in the old days with tapes, right? You had rewind and fast forward, but what is now is play,
Yeah.
right? What is now is presence. And, there's also stop.
Pause. Hey, absolutely.
Mhm.
It's so true. You mentioned and I get asked a lot, do you think you never had RA? Were you misdiagnosed? Or do you say you're in remission? Do you say, and I'm like, I don't really say any of those things, but I do say, if I go back to how I was living, I will be diagnosable again, right? Like if I do the things that got me there, I would return there. And so I want to talk about you mentioned being perimenopausal and we know again back to autoimmune numbers in women. So I believe more than one reason, so many different reasons and we know hormones definitely are a part of that, right? Like women with lupus who get pregnant can just immediately go into remission. So we know that hormones play a huge role. Um how I want you to I want to just kind of step toward where your focus is right now. Yes, m- nutrition, movement, all the things. And those things are always tweaking as life is changing too. But I want to talk about what you feel right now in this phase of your journey you need to prioritize to protect the wellness that you've created.
Well, the idea of nurturance is, as I mentioned before we were recording,
Yes.
right? The
Yeah.
self-nurturance piece. Well, like, what is that about? What does that look like? For me, it's really about self-compassion and developing a practice of self-compassion that, and I'm really starting to get into, but I don't like the language yet, so I'm still kind of, like, in the beginning stages of IFS, internal family systems. And it's a very fascinating language to uh, disidentify, or rather not be reactive to the negative emotions that we come up with, or judge them, or
Takes that
resist
charge out. Yeah.
them. It's like, yeah, to welcome all of these complicated, uh, multifaceted emotions that are playing out often at the same time, and to sit with it and be compassionate towards self, and to take that time to be compassionate and sit with and notice, oh, as I do these things and I move through life, these thoughts come up that are not supportive. Well, what do I do with those thoughts? I can go, instead of going, ooh, ow, ooh, stop, go away. I can go, okay, that's interesting. That's an old pattern. That's an old thought that no longer serves me, and I could let that go. So it's just like, I'm kind of obsessed with self witness, and like being there, because there's the feeler of the thought, there's the feeler of the emotions, the thinker of the thought, but there's the witnesser that's beyond it. I hope it's
Yeah.
right. We're getting a little out there, but I love this piece, because that's where the great nurturer is that no matter what I'm going through, I can hold myself in that.
I love that. That's such an interesting, the witnesser is what consciousness is all about, right? But we don't tend to. I want to highlight, you talked again about stillness, like all of, whether it's the self-compassion piece, the what do I need, the checking in, the identifying something that is a pattern that doesn't serve you. Um, that stillness though, is that underlying, right? And then showing up with giving yourself grace.
The stillness is, we can start to really acknowledge, what do I really need? And I think maybe it's just me speaking as a survivor of abuse, that we had unmet need that not only were not met, but they were told that they were bad, they were wrong, they were unreasonable, and all of these things. And I think a lot of women internalize that subconsciously. And that's why this antidote of like stillness is like a way of us giving ourselves what we needed, and validating, what do I need? What do I prefer? What is my feeling? And how can I nurture myself? Right. It's like, I think maturity has a lot to do with reparenting, and,
Sure.
kind of filling in the gaps where we weren't treated uh, the way we deserve to be treated,
Yeah. And
which is
I
lovingly.
believe,
And
yeah, and I think there is a common experience, if you will, of it can be little t traumas. It doesn't have to be, when we're talking about patterns that are created and needs not being met and not feeling, deserving of having the needs, or feeling judged for like all of those things. It's, I just want listeners to really lean in and realize, if they don't identify as, if they weren't abused, or they don't have these big capital T recollections, and sometimes it's like you said, sometimes the memories just aren't, it's not safe yet. Um, but I do feel like it is a way more common pattern, that shared pattern, of all of those things that, that women tend to. I always joke, I don't know anybody whose inner voice naturally, without lots of work, is a cheerleader, right? Is like, you're supportive. Like, everybody has that critic. And so, this conversation is for everybody. We all have that work to be doing. If we're not doing the work, we're not healing.
I was excited when you said little T traumas, because the first chapter of my book, it said little T traumas and disease,
Yeah.
disease,
Yeah.
right? Like these repetitive insults that are, just being ignored by your mom when she comes home from work every single day, and no, she didn't mean to do you harm, but did it have an impact? It had an impact,
Yeah.
you know?
And the
And these
only
things
one
like
who
kind
can
of
heal that.
accumulate.
Yeah. It's our work. It's always our work to do. Um, it is we have to we like you said, the reprogramming, the reparenting, the all of it, the rewiring is an active
Or
process.
if you don't take responsibility and you constantly blame shift and say it's their fault for this, it's their fault for that, it's their fault. Well, that's all well and good, but now what? Like
You're
so
stuck.
but there are people, and I write about this, and I'm sure you know this, that 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 becomes their identity of this is why I can't move forward in my life
Yeah.
is because that happened to me. And it's very sad.
It is because
It's
that's
very,
their
very sad, but it becomes like that's their badge. Like, this is how I get out of jail free is because
identity.
I'm sick. It's because
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a fascinating thing. Our egos are meant to grow, but if we don't challenge those concepts and those limiting beliefs, well, then we'll stay small.
Yeah.
And then we feel pain, right? We're uncomfortable, but we don't know why. It's because we really need to expand. That ego needs to shed some layers in order to expand to like who, what feels more comfortable so you can feel more comfortable in your own skin.
How do you balance? You mentioned before the other thing you mentioned before we started to record was, which is in this same lovely, beautiful bucket of self-nurturance, but say, feeling safety within the body. How do you discern between like where is that line between safety and comfort? Because they're not the same.
Mm, it's an interesting question. I mean, to me, comfort is like what comes to my mind is soothing, right?
Mhm.
What does it need to be comfortable in your own skin is to like be at ease, right? I can't be at ease if I don't feel safe.
Right.
So it's like the precursor is to be in a regulated nervous system state, right? Or they call it in polyvagal theory, dorsal ventral. Oh gosh, ventral. I forget. I'm very new at this language too. I'm doing IFS and polyvagal like at the same time right now. It's kind of
Just all the
focus.
things.
And it's a regulated nervous system.
Yes.
And then when you're dysregulated, you're uncomfortable, right? And you're not self-soothing, although you're reaching to
You're
self-soothe
trying.
with, you know, and social media and pursuit of things that might be harmful.
Yeah.
I find for me, I'm like a recovering dating app person. I
A
gave up dating
swiper.
apps because I felt like that had become my great. I was like searching for a partner, like in my pajamas, and like thinking that this was going to somehow work out for me. And granted, I know it works out for some people, but I was spending an enormous amount of time looking for somebody outside of me to make me feel okay.
Because you were avoiding something. And that's what kind of that is. I know it was a different kind of question, but I did want to bring up this idea of again, it takes some introspection, maybe a pause of yeah. Is my nervous system regulated, or am I looking for that fix elsewhere? Because we all know growth and change comes from discomfort. Like nobody ever said, I'm totally comfortable, I'm going to change. That's not so. The We're asking people pause, lean in, get curious, to kind of start that heal, to check in, right? What is going on? How did I get here? What do I need? Um, and there's some, for a lot of people in the beginning, there's a discomfort in that because they've been running from those feelings. That's not the same as, so I just kind of wanted to discern of like, I'm not talking about don't do the hard work. But but that doing it in a supported, safe way, um, is
Yes. And by the way, right, we can become these seekers of growth and be just as harsh on ourselves in a to try to heal and chasing healing, you know, in an aggressive way where we're never really quite satisfied. And I think again, like self-compassion and also celebrate, like celebrate and play and like being present, right? As saying, like, yeah, and I think gratitude in my life
yes.
has been a very important piece of surrendering to, yeah, life has suffering, but
Yeah.
it's not all
Right.
suffering.
Yeah.
And it's like emphasizing what's right in my life, in our lives. It's so important because especially if you suffer from chronic illness and chronic
Mhm.
pain, that it feels like hopeless, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well,
But
then it
it's all you
rewires.
see is the dark.
Right. Well, and then you see more of what, and so I love that you brought up gratitude because it's such a shortcut. I think it's so powerful. And it's such a great gentle starting place for people. And I'm going to say this because I say it to clients all the time because I'm not saying anybody listening, there's a difference between having a gratitude practice and being a grateful person. I'm not saying, implying anybody's ungrateful, but the practice of gratitude actually does rewire the brain and all of a sudden, like you said, your perspective shifts. And so by creating that practice, you experience it more, you see it more, you become more aware. And the negative stuff is less powerful.
And it's less powerful and it's regulating,
Yeah.
right? It's regulating. So when we shift into awareness of what is right, what is good, where am I blessed? And even like in this moment, I'm breathing clean air.
Right.
I am in a warm living room.
Yeah.
I have electricity. The sun is shining, right? I have we're having this conversation. You're in Colorado. I'm on the
Oh,
East Coast,
yeah.
and this is cool.
Yeah.
So there's this like it's safety. It's like gratitude is a shortcut for safety too, right?
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Absolutely. It is almost the it's like the fake it till you make it. Not that the gratitude isn't genuine. It's like laughter. Right? Like, it's you can laugh, and then your body releases all these feel-good neurotransmitters and hormones, and you know what I mean? Or you laugh because you feel good, but we have this physiology that allows us to use these tools, like doing a breathing technique to get into the parasympathetic state. It's not always, you don't just have to feel relaxed and peaceful. Like, we can physiologically trigger that state. And for so many, especially listening to this, they've been in a chronic sympathetic state for months, years, decades, lifetimes. That it takes a little training on how to dip their toe back into that state in a way that feels safe. Yeah.
And it's true. I think that even like living in chronic pain and
Oh,
illness are um are neurobiology becomes habituated for it. So to
Yeah.
disrupt that pattern
Yeah.
is a huge, huge piece of like, it's almost like we're addicted to pain.
Right. Well, that's the
And to
cycle we're
disrupt
in.
that,
Yeah.
we-
Yeah.
so disrupting it consciously does bring, and that's why, there's resistance. I meet so many people in my practice and in life that just are in so much pain. They're like, or anxiety. I can't meditate. I'm not a meditator. This is not, well, nobody's born a meditator,
Right.
like,
It's a
and
practice.
every day when I sit with myself, yeah, every day when I sit with myself, I'm squirmy as hell,
Oh, I love that you
and
said that.
sometimes I
Yeah.
sit, yeah, sometimes I sit for 5 minutes, sometimes I sit for 10 minutes, sometimes I can sit longer, but I'm always like alive. I don't turn into a statue when I sit down, I'm just sitting with myself and hanging out in my space.
I love that you say that because I think there's whether it's about meditation, this idea of to be good at sitting, to be good at meditating, to be good at just being means that, you're not having thoughts, which is not true if you're alive. Like you are having thoughts, you know. And so
Mm.
I like that you brought that up because
And
I
they're
wanted
never
to,
gonna stop.
yeah. Well, hopefully, um, the I was going to ask you earlier, as you mentioned this, the practice of sitting or just being. Um, does somebody, in your opinion, need to go spend a month in a cave to tap in and to heal? For those of you listening
I
on
think
audio, you should see the
that's
face.
unbelievable.
Yeah. It was perfect.
We are cave. Some people call the heart cave, So it's interesting you chose that word because we take our peace or our chaos with us everywhere we are. So you can sit in your heart cave, sit with your heart cave as like a visualization. Because I mean, I would love to go on a silent retreat. I still have yet that's on my bucket list. Like things I want to do
Sure,
is to
but you
go
want to do it.
on a 7. Right, but I don't need it for my sanity, no.
Yeah.
And, I think, yeah, why do you ask that? It's interesting that you ask.
Because I just I think there's a lot of misconceptions about healing work and about meditation, turning inward. Again, it goes back to what you were saying about the pushing to heal, which is not where healing happens. And so, you know,
Yes. You are striking such a chord right now. So after I wrote my book, I worked with Combo and I've been in remission. I was like, I want to try ayahuasca because ayahuasca, you've heard of, I mean, I know Colorado's got lots of that stuff going on. And right, that I sat with that medicine and I sat with the medicine quite a few times in one year because I was like really focused on recovery and healing from all my stuff. And that's ayahuasca is powerful medicine and it can make big, big shifts in your like relationship with yourself and, feeling in touch like there's a higher power and, getting in touch with God and who, that's all possible with ayahuasca, very possible. It can be very helpful. But is it the end all be all? Just
right.
kind of like going onto a mountaintop and sitting there for a year, like life is still gonna be lifing,
Yeah.
you know?
That's my first meditation teacher used to say, you meditate to get good at life, not to get good at meditating. Like it's a tool, you know. Um and so I've always and that's probably why she was my first successful meditation teacher. It just resonated with me of like, okay, it's a so, just trying to acknowledge a lot of the what I think are pretty common misconceptions, or missed approaches, this like go big, like you said, like I'm going to do this big thing and that's going to fix these decades of patterns. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the nervous system really likes slow and steady and gradual progress. This
Yeah.
was great. Thank you so much.
I love it. So we're at the point where listeners are trained to lean in because they know I'm going to ask you for one step that everyone can take starting today to improve their health or support their journey.
Yeah. Stop and breathe. Take a nice deep breath and release. Release it all out and with a big sigh, that it's okay. Maybe hand on heart. Maybe take another one, It's okay.
Ah, that is,
Yeah. I hope that helps.
that's it's a really, really impactful step. And what I love is that people can do it wherever they are. And we all need that reminder.
My
Yeah, I
mom
heard
used to
you and
say,
I did it.
my mom, well, my mom there's a little glitch and it's been going the whole time, but I hope it's okay. But like my mom used to say when she was mad at me, right now, this instant, when she wanted me to do something. And then I flipped that language. It's like right now, this instant, that's all there is,
Yeah.
So
Here we are.
try to take, claim it, claim it and try to be at peace with all that is.
I love that. For people who are listening on the go and aren't going to check the links, where can they find more about you? And the book, Align Your Body, Align Your Life, is on Amazon, right? And Barnes and Noble.
Yes. Well, it's not, I took it off Barnes and Noble because there was a
Fair.
bit of a scam happening and I got very comfortable. So I took it off of
Okay.
that market, but it is still on Amazon. You do have to key in my name, Lisa Beth Lent, so you can get the book. And then also my website is inneralignmenteducation.com. I have a very small nonprofit called All Rise Inc. with the vision for holistic health for people who are recovering from addiction and abuse. And then I have my Instagram and my Facebook at Lisa Beth Lent. So, I'm easy to find if you want to find me.
I love it. You guys should check her out. She's you're putting out such amazing resources. And I love how you show up just genuine and here to serve, and really grateful for your time and you sharing your wisdom with us.
It's been a pleasure. It was super fun to connect with you. I appreciate you and what you're doing. It's good work. This is good work. We are in the movement of helping people heal, right?
Thank you.
That's what we're here for. Yeah.
For everyone listening, remember you can get those show notes and transcripts by visiting inspiredliving.show. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to get a transcript of this and every other episode, just head on over to inspiredliving.show or click on the link in this episode's description. There, you can also find everything we discussed in this episode, including links and information about our guest. You can even send in your questions to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Until next time, this is Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, helping you take your power back.